This one won't last. I found the listing on a Tuesday night at 11:47 p.m. The kind of night when you're scrolling real estate apps like it's a slot machine. Maybe the next one. Maybe the next one. Then I saw it. A 2-story house with a little front porch and a backyard that looked like it belonged in a cozy movie. String lights, a swing, and a big tree that made the whole place feel safe. The price was suspiciously reasonable. I sat up in bed so fast, I nearly launched my laptop. I called the number on the listing the next morning. A woman answered instantly, like she'd been waiting for me. "Hi, this is Jessica," she said, bright as sunshine. "You're calling about the Cedar Ridge property?" I said. "Yes. Is it still available?" A tiny pause, just long enough to make my chest tighten. "It is, for now," she said. "But I'll be honest, I've had a lot of interest. If you want to see it, I can squeeze you in today." That word, squeeze, made it feel like I was lucky to even be asking. We met at 3 p.m. Jessica was exactly what you'd expect from a realtor who gets listings: polished hair, confident smile, clipboard in hand like she could sign your future with a pen. "You're going to love it," she said, unlocking the door. "This neighborhood is, honestly, it's one of the last good ones." Inside, the house smelled like vanilla and warm wood. The floors had that old oak shine. The windows were tall and bright. The kitchen wasn't fancy, but it felt real, like people had laughed here. Jessica watched me fall in love in real time. She was subtle about it, but not subtle enough. "You're smiling," she said. "I'm just surprised," I admitted. "It's nicer than the photos." "It photographs well," she said, "but it lives even better." Then she dropped the hook. "I'll tell you something," she said, lowering her voice like we were sharing a secret. "The sellers are picky. They don't just want the highest offer. They want someone who'll appreciate it." That made me feel chosen. And when you feel chosen, you act quickly. 2. The seller with the fatherly smile. The seller, Mark, showed up halfway through the showing. I remember because I was in the living room, staring at the fireplace, imagining winter nights, and suddenly I heard footsteps. "Hey there," a man's voice said. I turned and saw him in the doorway, mid-50s, button-down shirt. "I'm just a regular guy." Smile. "This is Mark," Jessica said warmly. "Mark, this is." I told him my name and offered my hand. He shook it firmly and held eye contact a beat longer than normal. "So what do you think?" he asked. I hesitated because I didn't want to show too much excitement, but my face probably betrayed me anyway. "It's really nice," I said. Mark nodded like he approved of my approval. "My kids grew up here," he said. "Hard to let it go. But you know seasons," Jessica added. "Mark's relocating for work." Mark sighed, like he'd rather not. "Yeah," he said. "It's time." He walked me through the backyard like a proud tour guide. "That tree was already here when we moved in," he said, patting the trunk. "I used to hang a swing for my daughter right there." I looked at the branch and pictured it, easy as breathing. Mark smiled. "I just want it to go to someone who's going to love it," he said. Again with that word. Love. Not purchase. Not acquire. Love. He was selling emotion, not property. I didn't realize it yet. 3. The perfect push. That night, Jessica called me. "Okay," she said, sounding excited. "So, I have an update." My stomach tightened instantly. "Someone else offered?" I asked. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no. She laughed softly. "Not officially," she said, "but I've been doing this long enough to know what's coming." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means if you want this house," she said, You shouldn't sleep on it. I stared at my ceiling. I can't overpay, I said. I'm already stretching. I understand, she said quickly. But there are ways to make your offer attractive. What ways? I asked. There was a pause, then her voice got gentle. Sometimes, she said, people lose homes because they want everything perfect. They want too many contingencies, too many repairs, too much protection, and the seller sees it as uncertainty. That was the moment she planted the idea. Be brave. Be flexible. Don't be difficult. She suggested a higher earnest money deposit. She suggested shortening the inspection window. And then she suggested the thing that, in hindsight, should have made me hang up. There's an inspector I trust, she said. He's thorough, but he doesn't alarm buyers over nothing. The way she said alarm made it sound like inspectors were dramatic little artists who paint problems for fun. What's his name? I asked. Tom, she said, like that meant something. I agreed. Because I was tired of renting. Because the house felt like a miracle. Because everyone kept telling me, this market is brutal, you have to move fast. And because I wanted to believe the world doesn't casually destroy people who work hard. For the inspection that saved them. Tom showed up in a crisp polo shirt with a company logo. He was friendly but efficient. He moved through the house with a flashlight, tapping walls like he could hear secrets. Jessica followed him around like a proud parent. I tried to follow too, but it felt awkward, like I was watching my own future get examined by strangers. In the basement, Tom shined the flashlight across the concrete and nodded. Dry, he said. I exhaled without realizing I'd been holding my breath. Tom checked the electrical panel, the water heater, the attic. He wrote notes. He shrugged at small stuff. Roof has some age, he said, but not urgent. Jessica smiled at me like, see? I told you. Don't worry. Tom's report came back with a few minor issues. Nothing scary. It was almost comforting. I signed the final paperwork 2 weeks later. The mortgage documents were so thick they felt like a weapon. Mark met me at the house to hand over the keys. He stood on the porch, smiling. Congratulations, he said. I shook his hand. Thank you, I said honestly. I'm really excited. He looked around the yard, like he was saying goodbye. You're going to make good memories here, he said. Then he got in his car and drove away. And for a brief, beautiful moment, I thought my story had a happy ending. 5. The first rain. The first rain came 12 days later. It wasn't even dramatic. No thunder. No hurricane. Just steady, ordinary rain. That night I was unpacking boxes, feeling proud. Then I noticed a smell. Not strong, just a hint. A damp, sour odor, like wet cardboard. I blamed it on moving. Maybe a box got wet. Maybe the basement was musty. The next morning, I went downstairs and felt my sock go cold. I looked down. Water. A thin film across the basement floor, creeping like a living thing. I stood there for a full minute, staring, waiting for my brain to catch up. No, I whispered. I ran upstairs, grabbed a towel, came back down, and tried to wipe it like it was a spill. It wasn't a spill. It was the house bleeding. I called a plumber. He came, looked around for 10 minutes, then pointed at the wall. This isn't plumbing, he said. This is seepage. Seepage? I repeated, like the word might change if I said it wrong. He squatted, ran a hand along a crack in the foundation, then stood up and gave me a look I didn't like. How long you been here? He asked. 12 days, I said. He let out a short laugh. Not mean. Just grim. Yeah, he said. They timed it. 6. Whoever sold you this house knew. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying everything in my head. The smell, Tom's flashlight, Mark's smile, Jessica's. Don't worry. The next day, I called a foundation specialist. Then another. Then another. Each one came, looked, and got quiet. One of them, an older guy named Raul, finally said what the others avoided. Listen, he said, hands on hips. I'm gonna be straight with you. Please, I said. He pointed at the walls. Those patches? He said. They're fresh. But the cracks underneath? Old. That paint? New. Somebody did cosmetic work to make this look better than it is. My stomach turned. How bad is it? I asked. Raul sighed, then handed me a paper estimate. I looked at the number and felt my vision narrow. $87,000. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was too unreal to cry. You sure? I asked. Raul nodded. And I'm gonna say something else, he added. Whoever sold you this house knew. Nobody lives with water like this and doesn't know. I thanked him like a robot and walked upstairs. I sat on my living room floor surrounded by boxes and stared at the keys in my hand. A house key is supposed to feel like freedom. Mine felt like handcuffs. 7. The phone calls. I called Mark. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I left a message. Hey Mark, it's me. We have a serious issue with water in the basement. Please call me back. I waited. Nothing. I called Jessica. She answered on the second ring. Hi, she said, too cheerful. Jessica, I said, trying to stay calm. The basement flooded. A pause. Oh no, she said. Like, from plumbing? No, I said. From the foundation. From seepage. Multiple contractors say it's old damage, concealed. She sighed like I'd just told her my package arrived late. That's really unfortunate, she said. Unfortunate? My voice cracked. Jessica, the repair estimate is $87,000. Another pause, longer. Well, she said carefully, homes are sold as is. I felt heat rise in my chest. You recommended the inspector, I said. He said the basement was dry. Inspections are just snapshots, she replied, like she was reading a script. They don't guarantee future conditions. I gripped my phone so hard my hand hurt. So that's it? I asked. I'm just stuck. I can send you a list of contractors, she offered. That was it. That was her solution. A list. Like I was ordering takeout, not trying to save my life. I hung up without saying goodbye. And in the silence that followed, something in me shifted. If they wanted to treat me like paperwork, fine. I would become paperwork. The kind that destroys you. 8. Step 1. Get quiet. Most people, when they're wronged, rush. They threaten. They yell. They post online. I didn't. I got quiet. I started reading everything I could about seller disclosures, fraud, and real estate law. I requested public records from the city, permits, inspections, previous renovations. I searched the property history. I pulled every document I could find like I was building a case against a ghost. Then I found something that made me sit up straight. 2 years ago, an insurance claim had been filed for water damage. Denied. Same basement. Same side of the house. I whispered, "Oh my God!" And then I found something even better. A past buyer had sued Mark for misrepresentation, then settled quietly. A pattern. Not an accident. Not unfortunate. Intentional. Now I didn't just have a problem. I had a roadmap. 9. Step 2. Get him to lie again. My lawyer friend, technically an acquaintance, looked at the documents and said something I'll never forget. People who lie once will lie twice. You just have to let them. I didn't want revenge yet. I wanted proof that could survive a courtroom. So I emailed Mark politely. Subject line, quick question. Hey Mark, hope the move is going well. We've noticed some moisture in the basement after the rain. Do you remember any history of water issues here? Just trying to understand what's going on. Thanks. I hit send and waited. He replied the next day. Nope. Never had water issues. Basement's always been dry. Sorry you're dealing with that. I stared at the email, then leaned back in my chair and smiled. Because now his lie lived in writing. And my folder of evidence was getting heavier. 10. Step 3. The inspector connection. Tom's inspection report had his company name and license number. I looked him up. Then I looked up Jessica. Then I looked up their affiliations. And there it was. Tom and Jessica were connected through a preferred partners network. Not illegal by itself, but very interesting. I called Tom. He answered like we were old friends. Hey, he said. How's the new place? My basement flooded, I said. A pause. Oh, he said, suddenly less friendly. Well, sorry to hear that. Did you see any signs of water damage during the inspection? I asked. No, he said quickly. Are you sure? I asked. Positive, he said, then added. Sometimes these things happen. Weather changes. Drainage. I cut him off. Tom, I said, I have 3 contractors telling me the concealment was fresh. Another pause. His voice changed. I can't help you, he said. And then he hung up. That hang-up was like a confession without words. 11. The forensic contractor. My lawyer, now officially my lawyer, recommended a forensic contractor who specialized in identifying intentional concealment. He came with a moisture meter, a camera, and the calm energy of someone who's seen too many scams. He scanned walls, tapped concrete, and then pointed at a section of paint. This, he said, is new. How can you tell? I asked. Different sheen, he said. Different thickness. And this line? That's where old paint ends and new paint begins. He scraped a small area, just enough to reveal a darker stain beneath. Water stain, he said. Old. He moved to the cracks and pointed. See this patch? He asked. That's a cosmetic patch. It's not structural repair. It's makeup. Then he looked at me. You want the blunt version? He asked. Yes, I said. He nodded once. They covered it up for the sale. My stomach tightened again, but this time there was something else mixed in. Relief. Not because the problem was small, because I wasn't crazy. Because it wasn't unfortunate. It was fraud. And fraud can be punished. 12. The letter that changed everything. We didn't call Mark to argue. We sent a formal demand letter. It laid out evidence of prior water damage, public record of an insurance claim, expert documentation of concealment, Mark's written denial in my email thread. It ended with a number, the cost of repairs plus damages, and a warning, if he didn't respond, we'd file suit for fraud and misrepresentation. I expected him to ignore it. He didn't. He called. Not me, my lawyer. My lawyer called me immediately after. He's panicking, she said. He should, I replied. He wants to settle, she said. How much? I asked. He offered $20,000, she said, like it was insulting. I laughed. Tell him he can use that to buy a mop, I said. We're not done. 13. Mediation. The smile is gone. Mark agreed to mediation. When I walked into the room, I barely recognized him. He looked smaller. His fatherly warmth was gone, replaced by the tight face of someone who realizes the world has consequences. Jessica wasn't there. Tom wasn't there. It was just Mark and his lawyer, both of them trying to look calm. The mediator, a woman with sharp eyes, introduced herself and started the process. Mark kept glancing at me like he couldn't decide whether to be angry or embarrassed. Finally, he spoke. "I didn't know it was that serious," he said. My lawyer slid a folder across the table. "Here's the insurance claim," she said. "From 2 years ago." Mark's eyes flicked to it, then away. My lawyer slid another paper. "And here's your email," she said, "where you state there were never water issues." Mark's lawyer coughed. Mark's face turned red. The mediator read quietly for a moment, then looked up. "Mr. Mark," she said, "can you explain why this claim exists if you never had water issues?" Mark's mouth opened, then closed. He tried again. "It was minor," he said. "We handled it." My lawyer smiled politely. "Then why didn't you disclose it?" she asked. Silence. The mediator leaned forward slightly. "Non-disclosure can be considered fraud," she said. Mark swallowed. And in that moment, I saw it. The exact second he realized his little cover-up wasn't a clever trick. It was a trap he'd built for himself. 14. The twist. Jessica's emails. Then my lawyer did something I didn't expect. She pulled out printed emails. "During discovery," she said, "we obtained communication between the seller and the listing agent." Mark's head snapped up. "What?" he said. My heart started pounding. My lawyer handed the mediator the emails. The mediator read slowly. Mark's lawyer's face changed as he read too. I watched Mark's eyes widen. Because there, in black and white, was Jessica advising Mark. Not directly saying, "Commit fraud." Of course. Nothing that obvious. But close enough to make your skin crawl. Statements like, "Disclosure might scare buyers. If it's dry now, it's not an issue. Cosmetic fixes can help show better." And the real killer. "Full transparency could kill the deal." Mark looked at me like I'd pulled a weapon. I didn't say a word. I just watched him realize he wasn't the only one in trouble. And suddenly, I didn't even want to yell. I wanted something better. I wanted them to lose what they used to hurt people. Their credibility. Their ability to do it again. 15. The settlement. Mark's lawyer asked for a private break. They stepped out. When they came back, Mark wouldn't meet my eyes. His offer wasn't $20,000 anymore. It was enough to cover repairs, plus damages, plus my legal fees. The number was so much higher it felt surreal. The mediator looked at me. "This is a strong settlement," she said. "If you go to trial, you could win more, or you could spend years." I thought about the basement, the stress, the nights I couldn't sleep. And then I thought about something else. A settlement can be quiet. I didn't want quiet. I wanted consequences. So I made one condition. I leaned forward. "I'll settle," I said, "if you also agree to a public statement acknowledging non-disclosure." Mark's lawyer's face froze. Mark looked like someone had punched him. "That's not," his lawyer began. My lawyer interrupted gently. "It's part of the agreement or we go to court," she said. The mediator raised her eyebrows. Mark swallowed. He knew what court would bring. Discovery, depositions, the emails, the pattern, the previous settlement, and he knew what else court would bring. Public record. His lawyer leaned close and whispered something urgently. Mark's shoulders slumped. "Fine," he said quietly. "Fine," And just like that, the man who sold me a lie signed his own confession. 16. The other two. After the settlement, things moved quickly. My lawyer forwarded information to the state licensing board. Not revenge, accountability. Jessica's preferred partner relationship with Tom was examined. Tom's inspection practices were questioned. I didn't have to scream online. I didn't have to threaten. I just handed the truth to people whose job it is to handle truth. Weeks later, I got updates. Jessica's license was suspended pending investigation. Tom was removed from multiple preferred inspector lists. I sat in my living room reading those emails and felt something warm in my chest. Not happiness. Relief. Because it meant the machine that chewed me up couldn't keep chewing others as easily. 17. Fixing the house with their money. Repair work began. Real repairs, not makeup. Drainage corrected. Foundation sealed properly. Sump pump installed. Land grading fixed so water moved away from the house, like it always should have. The day the crew finished, it rained again. Harder than the first time. I went into the basement like a soldier walking into battle. I stood there, waiting for the wet smell, the cold sock, the panic. Nothing. Dry concrete. Quiet air. Normal. I laughed, alone, in my basement, like a person who had been through something and survived. 18. The last scene. A few months later, I saw Mark again. At a grocery store. It was so ordinary it felt unreal. He was standing by the apples, holding a bag, when he looked up. Our eyes met. His face tightened instantly, like his body remembered what his pride wanted to forget. He looked away. Not because he didn't recognize me. Because he did. And he didn't want to be seen by the person who forced him to face consequences. I walked past him slowly. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. Because the revenge wasn't a punch. It wasn't a public meltdown. It wasn't a dramatic speech. It was something worse for people like him. It was paperwork. Evidence. Truth. And the understanding that the next time he tries to smile his way through a lie, he'll remember me. 19. Why I'm telling you this. People imagine scams as something that happens in dark alleys. But real scams happen in daylight. With coffee breath and friendly laughs. With, "This won't last," and "Trust me," and "It's just a formality." I learned something buying that house. Some people don't steal with masks. They steal with contracts. And they rely on one thing, one belief, that keeps them rich and keeps you quiet. That you won't fight. That you'll be embarrassed. That you'll tell yourself it's your fault for trusting. I did blame myself. For about 2 days. Then I did something better. I made sure it became their problem. And now, every time it rains and my basement stays dry, I smile. Not because I got money back. Because I got my life back. And because 3 people who thought they could cheat strangers learned a lesson they'll never forget. Some buyers don't just sign papers. Some buyers read them. And if you lie to the wrong one, you don't just lose a deal. You lose the right to do it again.